All right. All right. All right. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is Matthew, Day and Night Podcast, episode 42. We got another coming to you. And again, just want to thank you for those that actually watch us live and those that come back and watch us on Wednesdays. As always, like, subscribe, comment if you're able to. We got a good one for you. And just a little admin note. I'm just going to throw this in real quick. So just in case if you guys didn't know, I have my book that came out on the 20th. Well, actually, the book is called Journey to Ascension. So it's a fire book. It's really, really short. You can purchase it on Amazon. You can buy an ebook, paperback, or hardback. And it's really short. It's about maybe 64 pages, and it's introducing sound therapy. So if you don't know anything about sound therapy, this would be a great book just to introduce it to you. Learn about cymatics, binaural beats, singing bowls, tuning forks, and I believe there's one more. But like I said, if you don't know anything about it, this is the perfect book to get. It won't go too in depth, so you won't be lost in it. It'll just tease you just enough to say, you know what, I'm interested in this. Let me go ahead and check it out. So again, Journey to Ascension, and this will be part of my new business adventure that I'm starting. Sound therapy is coming to you soon. It's going to be via Zoom, and it's going to be in place. That's going to be a little bit later down the line, but actually online, you can call in or via Zoom, and we can get some sound therapy in. So no further ado, I'll kick it to Mark, and after that, we're going to get started.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope everybody having a great Saturday. Just going to say what I always say, just STS, guys. Stay focused, trust your process, and most of all, stay consistent. Anything you're doing, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, I normally gear that towards my fitness clients that I, train to try to keep them motivated and tell them that you'll get to that journey if you do STS. But just like always, like, subscribe, and comment. And like Matt was saying that, we're on Spotify now. I actually listened to us the other day. It's great. It's good for anybody that's on the road and you don't have time to look at the video. It's a great way to just keep in tune and with us on the Spotify. So that's a great deal. I really like that, that we got that started. So like Matt said, further ado, I'm interested in this topic we're going to talk about today. So I'm ready for you. Let's get it.
All right. So the topic is, let's talk about triggers. So I'm sure, again, I'm not going to insult anybody's intelligence out there. Everybody know what triggers are. And so just recently, like this past week, like I always do, I observe, I reflect, and just within myself, I noticed that I have a lot of triggers. And something that I've really started to realize is that we're triggered every single day by many different things. There's many different triggers. There's positive triggers. Of course, there are negative triggers, but we're triggered. Like, we're basically going throughout our lives based off of triggers. Like, if you really break it down and think about it, most of our reactions is based off of triggers. So, I mean, basically, and I love psychology. I'm studying psychology currently. So this is, something that really motivated me to want to do this topic. So just for myself, I always said that I didn't want to go through life and be the same type of person I was yesterday or years ago. And so I started doing shadow work and stuff like that. And when I was actually going through therapy, was it last year, almost 2 years ago, and we had a workbook, and that was one of the tasks that we had to do, is find out what our triggers are. And it opened my eyes because I didn't realize that I had triggers. You know, a lot of us have hidden triggers. So basically, to me, what I observe is so many people get into situations, whether it's an argument, a fight, death, even, but anything from an argument, like I said, to a fight is based off a trigger. And triggers are mainly based off of things that we experienced in the past, whether if we was children, teenagers, young adults. A lot of times what happened is those experiences, those traumatic experiences, is implanted in our subconscious mind. So some people don't even realize that it affects them and that it bothers them, you know, even when a situation happens. And we talked about this before, like if you're talking to somebody and they just snap or you just go off, and I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, what did I say to him? I'm just literally talking to him, and this person just, at a quick of a dime or a drop of a dime, they just flipped. So what that is basically somebody has a trigger that they have no clue what it is. It either could be something that the person said, the way they look at you, something that they do. And I'll talk about this later. Like there's 4 categories of triggers. So whether it's external or internal, there's always something that's going to trigger us. And like I said, we're going about our daily business every day, and you can be going to a store or something, and you can see somebody going off on a clerk, or you see somebody going off or snapping on somebody in line for no apparent reason. A person didn't say it did anything to them, but just like a word they may have said or a certain look, it just triggered that person from that past experience that they've been through. So I think so many of us are walking around, myself included, this I want to say damaged goods, but in a sense, unhealed. And this may sound perfect or it may sound crazy, but I believe a lot of problems could be solved if people really, really did that inner work and identify what these triggers are and actually work on them. Because like I said, most people don't even realize they have triggers. And they've been triggered on a daily basis. So I'm just curious about you, Mark, see what you got to say about triggers.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you ain't insult my intelligence. I'm gonna ask, you say you're gonna break it down. So triggers to me, I think it's pretty much the same thing that you're saying. I guess I call it pet peeves, but that's another way of saying it. But triggers, yeah, we all have them. I know I have a lot that I'm starting to discover. That's funny that you said that, how we don't actually realize it until somebody bring it to our attention. That's how I'm starting to realize it, is people actually starting to bring it to my attention. I have to be a little bit more true to myself and acknowledging that, yeah, that is actually me doing that. Because before I always try to play it like, no, that's you overreacting. I ain't do or say nothing. But now I'm starting to realize it's exactly like you were saying, that it's things that happened in the past, triggers that get me going. Now, just to name a few, one thing for me is, and it may sound silly to some people, but I think part of it where we grew up is somebody staring. Just, and it's going to sound like I said silly, but staring at you without saying anything, to me, that's a trigger, for the simple fact, I'm a firm believer, if you're staring at somebody at some point, you got to say something to acknowledge why you're just staring at them. Because to me, it feel like you got something to say. And that all depends on how the person is looking at you. It could be a befuddled look or angry look, disappointed look. But it's just the fact that, to me, if you staring at somebody more than 2 minutes without saying nothing, that's a trigger for me, because I feel like you just looking for whatever reason and you got to say something. Now, some people say it's out of endearment. I have significant others that tell me, well, I'm looking at you in endearment and I admire you. I'm like, well, then say something to follow that up, because to me, you just staring at me. I feel like I did something to piss you off, or I owe you money or something. And maybe it's an insecurity that I'm starting to realize that it bothers me after a while to stare. I was just always believe it's not polite to stare. Again, if you don't say anything, I feel like that's disrespect. After 2-3 minutes, what are you looking at that hard that you can't say something? So that's one that I have for me personally. I don't know if anybody else agree with that, but to me, that's a trigger for me, is just staring. Another one is when I have anybody just start something and say, never mind. And then just don't want to go and elaborate on what they're saying. Now, again, this may not fall in place of what you're saying, Matt, as far as triggers, but this is just something that triggers me to get me not pissed off, but just annoyed, I would say. I ain't gonna make it seem like it's that serious, but that's just a couple that, that triggers me, that I've come to realize that I get kind of, annoyed and come back at the person in a way to where it feel like it bothers me, and it's been brought to my attention. So I'm gonna let you say something, and I'm gonna go about other people that I notice that they don't acknowledge and they realize is a trigger, and they deny it like I've been doing, but now I come to that conclusion that there's some things that I do that triggers me. So I don't know if that kind of go along with what you were saying, Matt, but just let me know. I'm sure you will, but.
Now, you was spot on when you said we have a trigger with the way people look, because you do it all the time. Why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me all crazy? Now, this is the key. Now, I'm going to put you on the couch without putting you on the couch. All right? So the question is, you said it stemmed from like childhood, like you always had issue with people staring. The thing is, why do you have the issue with staring? Like something happened that triggered you when somebody's looking, that what the hell are they looking at? Why are they just looking instead of not saying something? So the question you have to ask yourself and figure out what it is why did you get upset when someone looks at you? Like something happened that it irritates you, that people look at you and you assume that they're looking at you a certain type of way or as judgment or whatever. So that's something like you have to really do some deep, I don't say soul searching, but like shadow work to find out why is that there? Because that's there for a reason. Because you do that almost all the time. I'll just be sitting there chilling and looking, and you're like, what the hell? Why you look at me all crazy? And I'm like, what? I'm just listening to you. But anyway, like I said,
I
that's
know
something.
Felicia, she probably watching this and she laughing because we had a little disagreement this morning about that. And she's main one that stares, but I know she always tell me it's not out of disrespect or mad, but she says out of endearment. So she's going to laugh right now because she's going to agree with you. That's why I just bring that up. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but that's good. That's good self-identification. You know that there's something there. You just got to figure out why it's there.
Right.
Now, since you keep bringing it up, or you brought it up, so I'm just going to read the definition of what triggers are. So it says an action or situation that can lead to an adverse emotional reaction. Okay, something that causes someone to feel upset, frightened, because they are made to remember something bad that has happened in their past. So that's basically what triggers are. Like I said, it's something that happened in your past. Subconsciously, when someone does it, or if it comes up, you react to it. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is like when something traumatic happened to us, our body holds that energy. So that's why, like when we do massage, and I talked about it before, it's called psychosomatic release. So when you can give somebody a massage, and I had this happen, like if someone's been in a car accident, and let's say they saw the car coming, and they like did like that.
Oh yeah.
So what happens is their muscles remember that, or if they was injured, it's muscle memory. So when you touch that person there, they like flinch or their muscles tense up and contract. So that's basically what triggers are. So that's what I'm saying. Like we operate every day based off of triggers that we don't even realize. Like even in relationships, you can be wondering why am I keep going in and out of relationships? So why is it I get in a relationship and the same thing keep coming up? Or why I keep responding to this person the same way I did with, my past exes? There's something that hasn't been resolved that happened a long time ago that's triggering you, not you, but it's triggering a person that it's putting them back in that moment, and then they're responding to that. That's why they always say that you can't get mad at a person if they're upset, because a lot of times the person is arguing not with you, they're arguing with themselves or something that happened or something that was done to them in the past. Now, if you walk up and slap somebody, then of course that's going to be that person being pissed off with you because you did something
Right.
to them. But I mean, like if you're just in conversation and something comes up and you're just talking and their mood just changed. And I used to do that a lot. When I was married and even past relationships, I'm a thinker. So I'm always thinking back to the past,
Right.
what the other person did. And if they do something that's similar, I automatically go back to that person and then I hold them accountable and then I lash out at them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one example for me with triggers.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I have a story about triggers, but this is not me. In Brooklyn, she know who I'm talking about because I said so before about her that I was picking on her. And it's not. It fits the story. So like this one is about a trigger. Now, if you watching Brooklyn, if you want to chime in and intervene, I'm more than welcome for you to just put your side up. But it was one day, she's a client of mine. I was training her, and we was at the gym. I forget what. Oh, she was doing a bicep curl. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this short and not make it drawn out. I was sitting there, but I was working out with her because the gym I was at, I had to portray as if I was working out because it wasn't the gym that I normally train at. So I had to play the role like if I was working out with her. So she was doing a bicep curl, and I noticed that her form was off. So I was like, Brooklyn, come on now, you know that you gotta squeeze at the peak and contract that muscle. And she went to say, well, I didn't know that. I said, how you didn't know that? We've been training for like 2 years. Come on now, you should know this by now. That shouldn't be something I had to keep telling you. It should be muscle memory by now. And we just back and forth. And then I was like, come on. Common sense says, and then, woo, did I say the wrong thing? What? Are you calling me dumb? I was like, first of all, I never said you was dumb. I just said common sense. She said, well, when you say that to a person, you basically calling them dumb, and I'm not dumb. And I'm getting tired of people calling me and insulting my intelligence. So it just went from 0 to 100 real quick by me triggering that word is common sense. Now, I didn't know that it was offensive to her until we talked and then we kind of settled down because it got heated to the point where she kind of walked out on the training session. But, she told me that she had a long week, but that was obviously a trigger because by me saying it, and I wasn't never meant for me to intentionally call her dumb or not smart enough. I was just saying like common sense says to do this way. And it's just like I said, it triggered in her mind and she just went left. So she never admitted it, but to me, that was a trigger. And I could be wrong. So Brooklyn, if you don't agree, again, chime in, please. But to me, that was a trigger because the way the conversation went after I said that. Now, I know anybody could take that in a negative way when you say common sense says, but I didn't say it like in an insulting way. At least I don't think I did. But she took it and, like I said, went 100, 0 to 100 quick. So that's one example of a trigger, in my opinion, for her. Again, I'm speaking on my behalf. So if Brooklyn be watching, please chime in so that way it don't be one-sided. But that's one. I'm gonna kick it to you again. I'm gonna give you some more. I'm trying not to talk too much. So I'm gonna let you say something, then I'm gonna come back with another person at work. Because I got my words. Yeah.
I'm going to answer for Brooklyn. That was a trigger because again, triggers is based off of emotion. So there's, like I said, there's 3 different type of triggers. There's external, which is basically, something you smell, sight, or texture that elicits some form of reaction or emotion. Then you have internal. That's something that someone holds inside that happened in the past. Like if they was abused, by their parents when they was younger, if they was jumped by, classmates, whatever the case is. So you hold it within. And then the other one is synthetic. So it's not real. It's something that's made up. But like I said, everybody's affected some form of fashion with triggers. We operate based off of how we was treated and what we went through in the past. Because what's one of the famous sayings? Learn from your mistakes.
Right.
So if you're learning from your mistakes or you're not learning from it, then whatever happened in the past is affecting you now. You know what I'm saying? So let's say you did something, you driving and you doing like 85 down this one road and you get stopped by the cops like every other week. At some point, he's like, you know what? I'm going to stop speed down this damn road.
Right.
So when you're driving and you hear a siren, you might immediately, or you see the cops, you might immediately, tense up or whatever the case is, and it's going to bring you back to you getting pulled over and getting a speeding ticket. So that could affect you as far as when you're driving, how you're dealing with somebody, you're talking to somebody in the car and you're trying to focus because you're trying to make sure it's no cops and they're talking to you and you getting irritated because something, a siren or something just went off and you just react to it. So that's just one example. And that's something I want to speak as far as on an energetic level. What's important is because, again, that keeps you or keeps us in a low vibration if you're constantly in fear. Because anytime a trigger happens, more than likely it's negative triggers than it is positive triggers. So like I said, that puts you back in that moment. And if it's something that was bad, then that lowers your vibration because of this fear, anxiety, sadness, anger, all those are low vibration. So it goes back to some of our past podcasts, especially with like manifestation. And if someone is like, why can I manifest these certain things or why these things keep happening in my life? Is because most people don't realize that these triggers is affecting them and preventing them from progressing because it's keeping them in that low vibration, so to speak. So I don't know if that makes sense, but now I want to flip it a little bit as far as with the positive, like if you got an award,
Right.
I'm pretty sure you had something happen in your life where you sit back and think and reminisce and you'd be smiling like, man, that was some good times, boy. Or, if you were a lady or whatever, and she was like the best you ever experienced and you just riding or just thinking you at work and like, man, that was good, boy. I remember that. That's what I'm talking about. So that, you know what I'm saying? That's still a trigger and it brings up positive emotion, excitement, happiness. So that's what I'm saying. Like trigger actually affect us on a daily basis and we don't even realize it, negative or positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, is it my turn again? My bad. No, I guess you want me to elaborate on the positive part. Yeah. So, for that, yeah, I have quite a few that was good triggers that made me feel good or, gave me a sense of accomplishment. And I think one of them was the finishing the personal training, because that's something that I always wanted to do and you inspired me to do it. And one of my previous trainers is when I was training. So when I went and did the class or the school, whatever you want to call it, and to actually get through it and then get the certification, that was a trigger for me because it made me feel like I accomplished something that I've been putting on hold and I was always talking about I'm gonna do it. And I remember one of my girlfriends at the time kept telling me, you keep saying you're gonna do it, but you never do it. So when are you going to decide to just go ahead and get your certification? So once I got it, that triggered and gave me the sense of, see, if I put my mind to it, I can get it done. So that was one. Another one was when I was at HEB and I got promoted to manager in one of the departments. And that was a good trigger because, again, it was accomplishment. It put me to another level. I had my own crew. So that was cool for the first time that I actually had people under me and I was their boss. So that was a trigger for me, again, give me that confidence to say, hey, put your mind to it. You can accomplish that. So that's good positive triggers for me anyway, on that aspect. That's pretty much it. All of them pretty much the same because everything that I did in a job environment, anyway I'm speaking on, I always got promoted. So the trigger for me is that I can always get to that level if I just focus STS. If I stay focused on it, trust the process and be consistent, I'm always going to excel to that level that I want, get to. So that was a positive trigger for me. That I can,
okay, so let me ask you this question. Because triggers actually do fall under mental health.
Right.
Because it deals with, with your mind and stuff like that. So it's part of psychology. Do you feel as though triggers can cause somebody, do you consider it like a mental illness?
It can be. I want to be careful when I say that, when I answer that. I mean, because I don't want to come across too hard. I think, yeah, that's a major thing, is that the mental issue with that. Because you stated earlier, whatever happened to certain people, whoever, it could be positive, negative. If it was more negative and you couldn't get past that, that will cause a mental illness, meaning that you stuck on whatever happened to you, and it causes you to act a certain way going forward, as far as trusting people or wanting to interact with people, or quick to be aggressive when somebody says something, you react the wrong way. So that could be a mental, not a major mental issue, but it's a mental issue, meaning that you can't, what's the word I'm looking for? Control your emotions. So yeah, so to me, yeah, that would fall along the lines of that, because it's a cause and effect in a sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that you have to be true to yourself, for one. Like we were saying earlier, once you admit it, like that's what I'm doing, self-evaluation now. And I'm realizing there's a lot of things that I control that I can fix, and I can't keep blaming anybody else or saying it's their fault instead of checking myself. So that's a mental issue that I have to work with. So to me, mental issues fall down in different brackets, I guess, depending on what you've been through. If somebody suffers something, which is part of PTSD, that's anything that happens to you, you can't get past it. Even with me, certain things that I've been coming to realize now, that's part of my problem, is I couldn't let go, or I keep bringing, letting it resurface. So that's a mental issue that I had to work within myself. So yeah, I think that trigger, those two work together. It's like one, affects the other in a sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna dig in the weeds a little bit. So it's this one psychologist. He's dead and gone now. Well, he's transitioned. He lived from 1904 to 1994, I believe, and his name was B.F. Skinner. So he was basically a behaviorist. So he believed, and he was the strong supporter, that we are controlled by our environment. So based off our environment is actually how we conduct ourselves as adults. So it's more or less like cause and effect is what he believed in. So I had several conversations with like different people. And this is where, from a psychological standpoint, where I see that it's an issue and it's underlying. So as one person was saying that they was feeling a certain type of way and they wanted to perform a certain act. I was like, well, why do you want to do that? Oh, how did that happen? It's like midday, so you just popped up out of nowhere and started feeling a certain type of way. And the person was like, well, yeah, I was drinking something. I was drinking some alcohol. And so me thinking, I was like, that's the trigger. Like the only reason why you're doing what you're doing is because that certain drink triggered you or makes you feel a certain type of way.
Right.
So you act off of it. You see what I'm saying? So that's what that goes back to, that we basically live off of our triggers and we don't realize it. So not only just that person, but somebody else that I was talking to. And it's funny because you always say, well, I like taking pictures and doing stuff like that, making memories.
Right.
And then this one particular person I was talking to said, well, they don't look at the past. They don't think about the past. And I was like, that's interesting, because if you're making memories based off the good stuff that you're going through, that's just what you're doing consciously. So imagine the stuff that you're taking in subconsciously and you're holding on to. You see what I'm saying? So the only way you can make memories about taking pictures, video, recording. And how to remember it, either you remember it by, you process it in your head, or you go back and you look at pictures or videos, and it takes you back to that moment. Now, just think about the stuff that you're doing. You're taking it subconsciously. The same thing you're doing consciously by looking at pictures and videos and stuff like that. You're revisiting the past because it's good memories.
Right.
So everybody does the same thing when it's negative.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So even when we don't think we're being triggered, we are being
Right.
triggered
Yeah.
because that trigger is going to cause us to make a certain decision based off of how we feel.
Mhm.
You know, let's say, for example, you had, not you, but a person had not paying their bills, right?
Mhm.
And their easy way out was either borrowing money from somebody or going to get money from a financial institution.
Right.
So every time when a situation comes up, they rely on those resources to get them out of that situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get where you're going. Yeah.
So basically, it's called reinforcement.
Right.
So a lot of times we reinforce our bad behaviors opposed to, and the flip side of that is called extinction. So basically just getting rid of it and stopping it.
Right.
So most people reinforce their bad behaviors. Let's say, for example, if somebody go off on you and they come back and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I apologize. I just had a bad day at work. You know, I didn't mean to do it. It was not personal, but just, the stuff at work was just weighing heavily on me, and I just
Mhm.
acted out on you." That's a reinforcement. So they're trying to reinforce their bad behavior based on something else. So that basically gives them a reason to do it again because they just go back to, well, I
Right.
apologize again, but you know what? I
Right.
just had a long day at work.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So let's
Yeah.
keep going
Yeah, it's a
around and
cycle
around. So
over
that's
and over.
basically
Yeah.
reinforcement.
Right. Okay.
So that's what happens a lot of times with triggers is those triggers are being reinforced opposed to being totally stopped and annihilated, which means
Mhm.
extinction. So you have to practice. So a way to get rid of triggers is called practicing extinction. So
Right.
anytime something like that comes up, if you get triggered and someone said, "Hold up, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're coming at me the wrong way." So as
Mhm.
soon as this identified, you have to identify what it is and not do that again
Mhm.
and not have somebody else justify it for you. I'm like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. It's good. I know you had a long day at work or whatever the case is. Don't worry about it. It's all good." That's basically reinforcing that behavior and reinforcing that trigger, I should say.
Mhm.
So that's just going to allow you to keep and hold
Keep
on
going. Yeah.
to those
Right.
triggers opposed to letting them go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I'm just listening to you, so that's why I had no comment on that one. But just going backwards a little bit, I know what you were saying right now, but it just made me think about a guy at work. And yeah, I don't think I told any story last week about work, so I got one today. But this guy actually, he's funny because he's I've been working with him for a year since I've been there, and I know this is a trigger because I watch him. He's a cool little Vietnamese guy, just funny, very funny character. But when we working on the line, whenever he gets frustrated, this guy literally walks off and goes to the restroom. And he does it every hour on the hour. Like if somebody's messing with him or rushing him or anything that aggravates him, he does his little, I'm going to the restroom. He does a little gesture like he's got to go pee. So he does that and he walks off and he goes back. He comes back. But that's a trigger because I noticed that's his way of avoiding confrontation. He
Mhm.
walks off and go to the restroom because every time something happens that he doesn't like, that's his routine. He walks off and go to the restroom and comes back. So it just made me think that's a trigger for him is whenever a confrontation comes, that's the way he avoids it. He walks off because he don't speak real good English. So I think the trigger for him is to walk away and avoid it because he gets flustered because he
Mhm.
can't, nobody understands him. So he just literally walks off. And I'm laughing because the guy, if you see how he was, he's very animated. But
Yeah.
he literally walks off. Like somebody's saying something he don't agree with, he go like this and walks off. He goes to the restroom. And he does it like in the spur of the moment. If anything, if the machines are messing up and they start breaking down, he gets frustrated. He goes to the restroom. So yeah, it's definitely a trigger. So I agree. Now that you brought this up more, it got me thinking about myself and other people, how certain things we all do have triggers that we don't even realize. And I think he realizes it and that he acknowledges it, but that's his way of handling his
Mm.
situation. So I think that's, yeah, it's crazy how we all have that. Some don't admit it and some do, you know?
Yeah, but for me, the key is to not have triggers.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I just sit there and think about, like, everybody always say, well, that's a trigger for me. And I always
Hmm.
say, I stop and say, well, why did you acknowledge you have one opposed to getting rid of it? Why you just accept it and say, well, that's the trigger for me? And then
Right.
people try to navigate around that and say, well, don't say that to him because that's going to trigger him. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's like it's luggage that you just holding on to that you don't need. It's like
Hmm.
people don't want to get rid of it
Right.
opposed to that. I mean, they'd rather keep it opposed to getting rid of it.
Get rid of it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's the worst thing to do is to just say you have it, but not actively working on it. And
Hmm.
like I said, that takes the individual themselves and it takes whoever it is that's in your support chain
Right.
or support channel to actually help too. Because like I said, when you're doing certain things and you're triggered by it and they know that's a trigger for you, opposed to, like I said, just dancing around it, not saying them intentionally trigger you to get you
Right.
to try to
Yeah.
stop doing it. But like I said, just like there's exercises you can do. And when I
Hmm.
was in the counseling class, it was a
Hmm.
book, and I think I left it upstairs.
Right.
So basically, what it was, it had like a whole list of words, and
Hmm.
you had to identify what those words mean to you when you read it. So it's
Hmm.
like as soon as you read it, whatever emotion that you have to write down what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so if it's like bad or whatever, I think if it was like a certain amount, that's a trigger. And
Right.
then you actively work on it. So, I mean, it's something that's kind of tedious. I don't see the average person doing that because,
Yeah.
it takes time and effort, like I said, from you and the people that's in your support channel.
Right.
But
Exactly.
so I just believe that it's something that's key. And I was
Hmm.
watching videos the other day, and it was some dude driving down the highway,
Hmm.
and it kind of came in at the last minute. And the dude jumped out the car and he hit the truck, and he took the
Yeah.
dude out the truck, and the dude out the truck had a bat and was trying to
Hmm.
beat him with it. Just
Right.
like road rage. So
Yeah.
I'm always sitting back. I'm like, what will cause a person to
Yeah.
just flip out and lose it? The
Hmm.
first thing that most people go to is they're crazy or something wrong with them. That,
Yeah.
that could be part of it, but
Yeah.
most of it is that person was triggered, you know?
Right. Hmm.
And like I said, I just see it as an ongoing issue that flies under the radar. And I
Hmm.
think it's the easy fix.
Right.
I believe that most people can, become a better version of themselves. And a lot of
Hmm.
things can be prevented
Right.
if people addressed their triggers,
Hmm.
you know. And I just realized I have a whole bunch,
Right.
you know, that
Yeah.
I just swept under the rug, or somebody else just kind of,
Hmm.
just babied it. But yeah,
Right.
it's a lot. It's a lot that's there.
Hmm. Well, I mean, that's funny. That's what you were saying, and I'm not asking you. It's kind of like a question, but it's not a question, like a rhetorical question. So once we acknowledge that, like you said, there's exercises to do to kind of combat that. But to me personally, I believe, like myself, I'm being more conscious of it because it's been explained to me, or verbalized to me that, hey, you do this, this, and that, and now I'm starting to really see, okay, that is something that triggers me. But like you were saying, how do you fix that? So the only way I can fix it is when I see it happening, I literally got to step back and gather myself and try not to let it get to me. Because another one is road rage. I'm that guy. Like, that's a trigger for me. Anybody that drives with me know with San Antonio, yeah, it's I cannot drive patiently, or not patiently, but just without getting frustrated because the way they drive down here. And Felicia told me the other day, how long you been here? And I'm like 32 years. So at some point, people always tell me you should already be used to it. But I'm like, I'm not ever gonna get used to the way they drive, because that's, to me, that's your life is on the line with other people driving around you. So that's a trigger that's gonna be the hardest one, because there's always somebody that's gonna do something to get me to get riled up. And then one person told me, well, why don't you already know how they drive, so what are you getting mad for? You should already know and just keep on going. I'm like, that's true, but it's more of a moment in time reaction. When somebody cuts you off, I don't see myself laughing like, oh, that's all right, he's just in a hurry. If it almost caused an accident. So I think that would be the hardest one to work on. So the point I'm trying to make is everybody that's out there that have to work on their triggers, some would be harder than the others, but you gotta know when it's happening to really focus on it. Because to me, if you don't acknowledge it, then you just, like you said earlier, you're just gonna keep reinforcing it. And then the people you're around, so I'm kind of echoing what you just said, basically, is they gotta be the ones, to me, that's gotta keep you on point. Because if they just enable you, you're never really gonna focus on it. So I got my daughter, she's been reminding me a lot lately. And so at Felicia, the things that I've done or do, that's a trigger for me. And that's what I've been trying to consciously work on. But it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, just do it tomorrow, you'll be better. No, you got to focus on it when it happens and really tell yourself, perfect thing. I know you say it's tedious, but like you said, write it down. But who's going to do that? But you got to do something, because, yeah, it's never going to go away. It's going to be constant, like the hamster on the wheel, basically. So yeah, them triggers, yeah, like you said, I have a lot too. So
all right, so I want to read this comment from Diamond Girl. And I'm going to respond, and I want you to respond too. She says, gotta forgive the past, including ourselves and our role in it. Understanding the assignment and knowing ourselves and why we are here, and being consciously aware and agape love is key. That's a lot in there. All right, so I'm going to address this one or respond, however you want to coin it. All right, so she said you got to forgive the past. Okay, so what is forgiveness? Because again, that's to me, that's relative. Is forgiveness just saying, accepting it and saying, okay, it happened, it is what it is, it wasn't my fault, or it is my fault, and I'm moving on? Is that what forgiveness is? Just truly acknowledging whatever the situation was and just letting it go? Understanding the assignment. I think that's key, because what if most people don't know what their assignment is? And this is just my opinion. I think most people have an idea as far as what their assignment is and what they want it to be. But if that's God universe, true assignment for you, and you're out of alignment with it, so are you truly knowing what your assignment is? I know she probably like, damn, he breaking my damn comment down. It's a comment. It is what it is.
Was it a comment or a question?
It was a comment, but I'm just breaking it down.
You just dissecting it. Yeah, you in the lab just tearing it up.
All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. But I do truly believe what she said is on point. I was just curious about the whole forgiveness thing, because that's relative to me. And so same thing with the agape love. All this stuff is relative. But anyway, Mark, you talk about it.
Well, I mean, read the first comment and then read the other one again, just so make sure I don't say anything off the board.
All right, it says you got to forgive the past, including ourselves and our role in it. Understanding the assignment and knowing ourselves and why we are here, and being consciously aware and agape love is key. So basically universal love.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's, like you said, it's on point. But the only thing I would say, not to try to go against it, I would go and say, yeah, but I would just elaborate on that as far as the forgiving part. Yeah, we should forgive. And I think part of forgiving is allowing yourself to accept what happened and say that, I can move on. Whatever happened did happen, but it's still a process that you go through. That's why I say everything is a process. So in that process, you might still have where you develop that trigger, because even though you forgave, you still have to get to that point. Even if you know what your assignment is, you still got to get there. I think everything we do in life is a process, regardless where you get A to B. That journey is going to be a process in the middle of it. So you're going to go through the trials and tribulations of the triggers. Even though you may have accepted it, you might have been scarred by it. So
Right.
even if you know what your assignment is, you got to get to that point. And the forgiveness, I think, is easy. I don't want to say it's easier said than done, but I just think in that you got to really dig deep and trust yourself and know yourself and know that whatever happened is something that was, is not going to happen again, and just push through it. But I believe it's a journey and it's going to be a process. So a part of that process is the trigger. And once you get through that process, I think you will be able to go and let go of the past and not worry about it. But I think perfectly said earlier, we both said everybody's affected by the past, either good or bad. It's just how we choose to take it forward and how we use that in our life in the present. So, I mean, you could take that either way. So I think at the end of the day, I agree, but I just think it's a process. So we got to remember that there's going to be a process. So that process is going to be triggers and all of that. And it's not going to be that easy to forgive, but at some point you will be able to, because there's a lot of stuff that happened to me in the past. And it took me years to forgive, and that process was me not trusting and reacting and being triggered by certain things. But now that I'm here, I realize that, I'm a much better person who I was back then. And I forgave, but I didn't forgive right away. It took a process to get there. Sorry for the long answer, but, or comment. You know me, I ain't going to keep it short. So,
Yeah. So Diamond Girl asked, she said, thank you for turning it into a question. You have to excuse me. I'm a very analytical person. I analyze everything. So there was nothing wrong with your comment. So just forgive me. She said, elaborate, please. So yeah, it's not a question. You didn't ask a question. It was a statement. But I do have a question for you. So I'm just curious, like, what are your triggers? I mean, you don't have to identify them, but do you know that you have triggers? And if you do, can you identify them and are you working on them? So I'm just curious, please respond if you like. If not, by all means, we respect that. But so the whole gist of this whole topic for the day is, like I said, just identifying that we have triggers and just knowing that these triggers affect us daily, like I said, good or bad. And it's just something, in my opinion, that I feel as though it's something that we can't just slide under the table, because just from my, observation, people treat triggers like it's a condiment, and to me, it's something more than that. It's like part of the full course meal, because like I said, it affects every decision that we make. Because sometimes we make our decisions based off of our triggers. And I'm more so speaking of triggers that's hidden that we don't realize, that maybe a select few of people may see it. Like if you're not with someone in your support channel, if you're just out and about, if you're at work, like I said, if you're out in the store or whatever, and something happens and it triggers you and you respond off of that, those people are not going to really take anything of it because they don't know you. And to you, it could just be, well, it was in the moment. It's something that just happened. So I'm just dealing with it, as it came to me in that moment. But you're not realizing that that's a trigger and it's affecting you, how you move and stuff like that. Like I said, for me, everything is based off of energy, vibration, frequency. So for me, with my ascension, I have to be in a high vibration. So if I'm in a low vibration, because of my triggers is holding me back, I just feel as though that's something that needs to be addressed. So that's why I look at it like that. And I'm sure Mark and you and everyone else have their reasons in how they approach triggers and may not see it as serious as I do. So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read her response. She said, I have many triggers. Yes, I am aware of them. And yes, I work on myself daily. I can only change me. I am also working on how I may trigger others through my behaviors. How they say, good answer, good answer.
Yeah.
All right, what you got? What you got?
Oh, nothing. I was just listening what you were saying, and it made me dawn on something too that's a trigger that can affect people is incidents that happen with other people can trigger you. Now I'm getting personal with this, but I always, was sharing with Felicia about how I am. My trigger is certain things that women do. And part of it, and God rest our soul, I'm not talking bad about our mom, but certain things that triggered me was how mom used to do dad. And I always
Oh
felt
yeah.
like that triggered me in the way I view women and how I expected women
Hmm.
to have my back and not disrespect me because I saw, and I'm not saying mom was bad dad the whole time, bad with dad, but it was just certain things that was done that I just personally don't agree with or did agree with when we was younger, and I don't now. But I think that's what triggered, and now I'm working on that
Hmm.
because I noticed that and I see that when I dated other women, that was my biggest problem is the trigger from when we was children, and it affected me in my adulthood. But now that I see it more, it's been brought to my attention. Now I'm working on it. So the point I'm making, the more of that story is, I think that's another way we could be triggered. And like you said earlier in the podcast about childhood, a lot of it stems from what happened. It may not even happen to us personally. It could have been something you experienced or was around. So yeah, at the end of the day, we got to self-evaluate and really work on it and realize it. And it's not just to realize it, don't work on it. So that's the key is recognizing it, but doing something about it. So
I realized that we had a trigger,
yeah.
like you and I, and this was a couple of weeks ago. It just came to me, and I told someone about it. I was like, man, I don't know why, because I don't know if you remember this. Like, anytime we was around each other, that I had someone with me, we always got into it, and it was like it never failed. It was always when it was
Yeah.
just you and I, it was okay. But when it was like with me, with someone I was dating, it was always an issue.
Right.
But I identified what that trigger was, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I didn't realize it before because I subconsciously said I'm not worried about it, but subconsciously it was there. It's like whenever
Yeah.
you was around somebody that I was with, that's when it came up. So just your presence was a trigger, not necessarily what you said. Sometimes, the interaction you may have had with them, it triggered that moment that I
Mm-hmm.
experienced. And it took me back to that. And that's how it always was an issue. Because
Right.
for the longest, I was like, that is weird as hell. Like every time when he comes around somebody that I'm with, we always get into it. Like it never failed. I remember not one time we didn't get into it. Not one.
Yeah, I think this last time when I was down there, we didn't get into it.
No, I mean,
For
we didn't get
personal.
into it, but I felt a certain type of way, is what I'm saying. It triggered
Oh, okay, yeah,
emotions in
that,
me.
yeah. For that, I didn't have no knowledge of, but yeah,
Yeah.
but like verbally, yeah. I mean, I don't think we have this last couple of times I've been down there, but yeah, all the other times, yeah, it was always something.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting.
that's why I'm saying for me, like, it may not mean anything to y'all, but for me, this is real. Like, this is
Yeah.
something that really needs to be addressed. Because I could just see it. I'm probably not articulating it the right way, but I just see it as like it's the foundation of so many problems that stems from that, just from those hidden traumas that we all experience at some
Mhm.
point in our life.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important to go through like shadow work. And it's funny because on TikTok, it's this big going back and forth because the book that I have is called Shadow Work and it's
Mhm.
Black. And they promoting it big time on TikTok. And so people going back saying it is demonic and stuff like that. And it's ridiculous because it's based off of psychology. It's a lot of questions of what psychologists use to get you to bring out some of the stuff that you hid, from past traumas. It's
Mhm.
just that it's called shadow work because it's dealing with that shadow part of you that you don't want to reveal. So that's
Mhm.
why it's shadow work because you're bringing out that part that you don't want anybody to know about or you don't know about.
Right.
So I just believe that that's something that everybody should have to do. It's not like optional because like I said, we all go through something. I don't think it's a being on this planet that hasn't been through anything,
Yeah.
you know, that didn't cause some type of trigger. You know, like I said, even good triggers are not good triggers in a sense.
Mhm.
It's not as bad as like, you know, something is really traumatic, but it could still trigger you to do
Right.
something that's not considered good behavior, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, but
You're like, yeah, whatever. He just rambling.
no, you got me sitting here thinking like a lot of triggers I have, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm not sitting here bashing myself by no means, but I just think it has to be where you got to be honest with yourself and
Yeah.
admit to yourself that yeah, I have a lot of triggers that is affecting me on how I'm moving forward, how I'm moving
Mhm.
now. So yeah, we all need to do that. That's something that's important. But I think the hardest part of that is how many of us can really be true to ourselves. Now we all can say, yeah, I know what's wrong with me. I need to fix it. But again, I'm just echoing the same thing over and over. What you gonna do? That's why I always say I'm an action person. Like, say less. You
Right.
know, that's my saying now. Say less. We all can talk, but say less and do more. So I feel like even for myself, I ain't putting myself separate from anybody. You know, that's my motto now: is say less and do more. You know, so I feel like that's perfect. You know, like we said earlier, like you said, stated. If you know it, it's nothing worse than somebody acknowledging something that they know and don't do nothing about it. To me, that's
Right.
even worse than you just denying it and saying, "No, that ain't me." At least you still having a battle with trying to accept it. But when you allow yourself to say you know and you still do it, to me, that's no excuse. You shouldn't be like that. And again, it's going to take a journey. It's going to take a process, but an effort got to be in there somewhere. So we'll say
You know,
less. Yeah.
it's a pretty good technique, and it was in that book, and you'll be surprised. Like it had like two things. One is write a letter to your past self, and then the other one is write a letter to your future self, and then it's like write a letter to your child, and as you was a child, and you'll be surprised with the stuff that you'll remember, like
Mhm.
past things that happened to you that you just put in the back of your head. And I'm telling you, it'll just illuminate so much. And like, wow, I didn't even think I was I didn't even know I held that,
Mhm.
you know. I didn't know that bothered me the way that it did.
Right.
So I'm a 100% supporter of doing shadow work and stuff like that because I know it helps.
Mhm.
I was just thinking earlier today, like I can look at past things that I used to do that I don't do anymore. And that's only because I've been putting in the work, you know, doing this shadow work, you know, and it's a book. I left it up there. It's another journal. And it has a
Mhm.
section and it says, whenever you trigger, you write it down. So whenever you're triggered in that moment, instead of acting out or whatever the case is, you just write it down. Like if you by yourself and something happened at work, or if your lady pissed you off, soon as that, you know you're upset because you can feel that you're upset. I just go straight to the book and write it down. And when I revisit it, you find out what your triggers are. A lot of my
Mhm.
triggers were Tam, my ex-wife, child support, and my benefits,
Mhm.
and then the car. Those three things for like almost 2 months straight was triggering me every other day.
Right.
So no one can move forward the way they're supposed to if you're always triggered. Like I was triggered at least 2, 3 times out of a week. So
Mhm.
again, that puts you in a low vibration because you're dealing with anger, rather the sadness, hate,
Mhm.
whatever the case is, all those are low vibration. So how are you manifesting stuff if you're in the low vibration? You know what I'm saying? Because you're not on that high frequency and vibration. So anyway, I'm not going to get back on that topic. So I'm a supporter of it.
Yeah.
If you got a chance, I should buy you the book and send it to you. But
What?
the shadow work book,
Oh yeah. Well, just tell me it's on Amazon. I'll look it up and get it.
yeah, like definitely the one with the triggers. Like if you in
Yeah.
the car and someone pissing you off, I mean you can't do it right then and there, but when
Right.
you get home, just write
Yeah.
it out.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so one more comment from or question. I'll let you answer this one. All right, Diamond Girl says, do you believe that we can over-evaluate or judge someone and create unnecessary triggers? That's the hell of a good question.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll let you answer it first and I'll close it out.
So can you over-evaluate someone? And what was the other part?
Or judge someone and create unnecessary triggers.
Yeah, of course. But why would you overdo that, or over-evaluate or judge somebody? What is it being based off of? So in other words, like if I met someone and I'm over-evaluate or judging them, is it based off something that occurred with someone else? And we both said this earlier, where it may not be that person, but something that happened with someone else, the situation will cause you, and not saying that you should do that. You should never judge somebody based off of someone else. But if the situation comes up, it's going to almost kind of get you in that moment again, because it's the same exact thing, just a different person. So you can tend to over judge someone and develop a trigger because of that. Yeah. So you got to step back and kind of tell yourself that this person isn't like that. I can't do or say these things to make this person feel like they're a certain way, because all you're doing is develop triggers for yourself with that person. So I agree. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But do we do it? Yeah, I think we all have done it once in our life. So I think that's something, again, you got to self-evaluate and kind of work on it. It's a process. I'm a firm believer in that. So to answer your question, yes.
Okay. Do you believe that we can over-evaluate? I think that's a yes and a no. And the only reason why I say no is it's subjective or objective. When I know what you know, objective is subjective, but if that person is doing something, they're not giving you something to actually say, okay, he always flips out when I say something or do something. He just acts a fool, he throws stuff. So that's too much for me. I don't want to handle that. So in that sense, I don't think you're over-evaluating. Now, if that person is just talking and it, then it is over. It could be, because our perception is our reality. So because if you're perceiving a person to be a certain type of way, and it's not really that, then in a sense, you can over-evaluate. Can you judge someone or create unnecessary triggers? When you say triggers, are you saying triggers for you or for the other person? How did you receive that?
I've received that both ways, because if you over judging that person, you're going to trigger them to be defensive because you're judging them too much. So now they being more defensive. So I figure like that's a trigger, because you over evaluating everything and analyzing it. I know she didn't say analyze. That's just me putting that out there. So I think the trigger could be both, because then I'm being triggered by something you doing that causing me to judge you. So that's a trigger for me. And the trigger on the other person is me over evaluating and judging. So I think that's the trigger on both sides. Correct me if I'm wrong, Diamond Girl, but that's the way I perceived it. So I might be wrong, but that's just like you said, your perception is your reality. That's my perception of it. But again, if somebody look at something and over evaluate it, to me, that's based off of something you've been through. And you just one of those people to where you got dissected because you're used to something that happened once upon a time that's causing you to over, evaluate the person or judge someone. It has to be based off of something you've been through. So that's why I say that. But that person has to look within themselves and say, hey, this person isn't that other person, or that situation isn't the same, even though it may seem like it. I got to handle this person differently. So,
okay,
if that makes any sense, but
it does. So, Diamond Girl, hope that answers your question. So that's going to do it for this episode. I humbly thank you for interacting with us. I appreciate you for being consistent as a viewer and interacting. Much appreciated. I know Mark does. So just continue to watch, continue to like and comment. And, you know, as I say, your thoughts becomes your belief and your belief becomes your reality. And don't forget, beautiful people, Journey to Ascension on Amazon. It's a good read. All right.
Mhm. Oh, was it another comment? Oh,
Yeah, no, I was just doing my outro.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say something. You was looking down. I thought you was going to say something.
No, I
Say
was
something
reading
else.
Diamond's response.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna end it same way. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you looking or watching. Excuse me, Diamond Girl. You know, much love. Keep the comments coming. Stay interactive. Stay in tune. You know, in tune with us. Everybody else, you guys out there, we want y'all to give us feedback too. You know, this is good conversations, good topics, and make you open your mind. That's what I love doing this podcast. And I'm always going to end on the same thing. Whatever we're doing, whatever it is, we always got to STS. Stay focused, trust your process, and most of all, you got to stay consistent. So I appreciate everybody.
All right.
And that's it. Enjoy
Peace.
your Saturday.